God, please help me. I can't bear this any longer. Such were Destiny's final words after she clutched her abdomen and collapsed onto the hot Chicago asphalt. Her emaciated body lay on the ground like a wounded bird, her school backpack spilling notebooks across the sidewalk. No one approached to help, but someone was watching. Michael Jordan lowered the window of his limousine, his heart lurching at the sight. "Stop the car," he commanded his driver. The world's most renowned basketball player flung open the door before the vehicle had even come to a complete halt, his designer sneakers touching the hot pavement. Onlookers began to converge, recognizing him, but Michael's gaze was fixed solely on the unconscious girl. He rushed and knelt beside Destiny, ascertaining her breathing. She was alive, but cold as marble. "Hey, young lady, can you hear me?" Destiny slowly fluttered her eyes open. Upon seeing who stood before her, she attempted to rise abruptly but faltered. "Easy, easy now. You fainted. When was the last time you ate?" Her silence spoke volumes. Michael noted her skeletal arms, her hollowed cheeks, her dull, listless eyes. But there was something more. There was fear. Fear of what, or of whom? "Come on, let me get you something to eat." Michael extended a hand gently. Destiny recoiled as if he were a predator. "No, sir. I can't." "You can't? Why not?" "I just can't." She clutched the backpack against her thin chest. Michael scrutinized her face. There was genuine terror in her eyes. It wasn't shyness. It was unadulterated panic. "Look, I know you don't know me, but I'm a father. I have a daughter. You're clearly in need of help. Please, just let me go home." Destiny tried to stand again. It was then that Michael noticed. As she adjusted the sleeve of her top, purple marks became visible on her wrist. Fresh contusions in the distinct shape of fingers. Someone had gripped that girl forcefully. Michael's breath hitched, his jaw clenched. Who could have done that to a child? "Where do you live?" Michael inquired, his voice firm but gentle. "Over there, a few blocks," Destiny pointed with trembling fingers. "Then I'm taking you home. I won't take no for an answer." He helped her into the limousine. Destiny huddled into the leather seat, appearing even smaller than before. The driver awaited instructions. "Where to, miss?" She murmured the address. Michael scrutinized her every move throughout the journey. Destiny gnawed at her lips until they bled. Her hands trembled uncontrollably. "Are you afraid of something?" he inquired gently. "Everyone ought to fear something," she replied, gazing out the window. Her response sent a chill down Michael's spine. What kind of life must a 14-year-old girl lead to utter such a sentiment? The limousine pulled up in front of a small, dilapidated house. Paint flaked off the walls like sun-scorched skin. Then a man emerged from the doorway, tall, gaunt, with an excessively wide smile. "Thank heavens you've arrived," the man exclaimed, rushing towards the vehicle. Michael exited first, scrutinizing the stranger. He appeared to be in his 50s, with graying hair and restless hands. "I'm Roy, the family's neighbor. Destiny concerns me so much. Always out by herself." "Michael Jordan," he introduced himself, observing the immediate sparkle in Roy's eyes. "The Michael Jordan! Good heavens!" Roy gripped his hand with excessive force. "What an honor! What an honor! Thank you for looking after our girl." Destiny alighted from the car and immediately lowered her head. Her entire body recoiled as Roy approached. "Let's go, little one. Your mother will be worried." Roy placed a hand on her shoulder. Michael saw Destiny flinch as if jolted by an electric current. Why did she react this way to a kind neighbor? 20 minutes later, a weary woman came rushing up. A grubby cleaning uniform, a tattered purse, eyes reddened by exhaustion. "Destiny! My daughter!" Sheila embraced the girl frantically. "Easy, Sheila," Roy whispered. "This is Michael Jordan. He brought Destiny home." Sheila looked at Michael as if he were an angel descended from the heavens. "Mr. Jordan, I don't know how to thank you. Did she collapse in the street?" "She collapsed from lack of food, it seems," Michael replied, studying the reactions of both adults. "I work all day, 3 jobs, just to make ends meet." Tears streamed down Sheila's face. "Roy here is an angel. He always helps with Destiny in my absence." Michael observed Destiny throughout this conversation. The girl was ashen. Her hands were trembling violently. Something was profoundly amiss in that house. Things will soon improve. Sheila wiped her eyes. My fiancé, Clive, secured employment in another state. We're getting married and moving in a few weeks. The mention of Clive caused Destiny to snap her head up abruptly. Her eyes blazed with such intense hatred that Michael felt a shiver run down his spine. Clive is a good man, Roy interjected hastily. He'll take good care of them. That's not true, Destiny murmured, but only Michael heard her. What did you say, dear? Sheila asked. Nothing, Mom. Destiny lowered her head again. Michael sensed the palpable tension in the air. There were layers of secrets within that family, layers of lies, layers of fear. And Destiny was at the center of it all, like a bird trapped in a cage. Look, I'd like to help you financially, Michael said, pulling out his wallet. No, sir. Sheila recoiled as if he had offered her drugs. We don't accept charity. It's not charity, it's aid between human beings. We have our pride, Mr. Jordan, Roy intervened. Sheila is a hard-working and honest woman. Michael noticed how Roy spoke for Sheila, as if she were a child who needed protection or control. At least let me pay for a doctor for Destiny. She clearly requires medical attention. Clive will take care of that when we get to the new state, Sheila responded swiftly. It was then that Destiny lifted her gaze. For a second, Michael saw absolute despair in her eyes. I don't want to go, she whispered, the words emerging as a strangled cry. The ensuing silence was deafening. You don't want to go. Michael knelt down to Destiny's level. Why? Destiny is confused, Sheila interjected nervously. She hasn't been eating properly for 2 months. She's weak, delirious. 2 months? Michael rose, alarmed. What do you mean, 2 months? She's been having stomach pains, can't keep anything down, Roy explained, just like her father before he died. Her father died of stomach cancer. Sheila began to weep. I'm afraid Destiny has the same illness. Michael looked at the skeletal girl. 2 months without eating properly would explain the extreme malnutrition, but it wouldn't explain the fear in her eyes. It wouldn't explain the bruises. Have you taken her to a doctor? We don't have medical coverage. Sheila lowered her head, abashed. And Clive can't help with that? A heavy silence descended upon the group. Michael watched Destiny clench her fists. What kind of man would let his stepdaughter starve to death? Enough! Michael stamped his foot. I'm taking Destiny to the hospital immediately. Mr. Jordan, that's not necessary. Roy attempted to intercede. This is not a suggestion. It's a decision. Michael looked directly at Sheila. Your daughter could die without medical attention. Sheila began to sob uncontrollably. Reality slapped her across the face. All right, I'll go with you. No. Destiny spoke for the first time in several minutes. Only him. What do you mean, only him? Sheila sounded hurt. I trust him. Destiny looked at Michael. He'll protect me. The word protect resonated in the air like an alarm bell. Protect her from what? From whom? Roy murmured softly, but Michael heard perfectly. You're doing the right thing. But there was something sinister in the way he said it, as if it were a veiled threat. Inside the limousine, Destiny finally broke the silence. Mr. Jordan, does God punish the weak? The question hit Michael like a punch to the gut. Why do you ask that? Because I pray every day. I ask him to help me. But nothing changes. It only gets worse. Michael didn't know how to respond. How to explain to a child that God doesn't operate like a genie in a lamp? Sometimes God sends people to help us, he finally said. Perhaps that's why we met today. What if I've done something really bad? What if I deserve what's happening to me? Michael's heart shattered. What 14-year-old child carries that kind of guilt? Destiny, listen to me carefully. No child deserves to suffer, never, regardless of what happened. She began to weep silently, tears that carried years of pain. Michael couldn't get a question out of his head. What had that girl endured? Chicago General Hospital received the pair with a flurry of activity. Nurses rushed over when they saw Michael Jordan, but he pointed to Destiny. She needs urgent medical attention. Dr. Monroe, a black woman in her 40s with kind eyes, took over the case immediately. My name is Dr. Monroe. How long have you not been eating properly, dear? 2 months. Destiny whispered. 2 months? The doctor exchanged a worried glance with Michael. Let's run some tests. She took Destiny to a private room. Michael remained in the waiting room, but his mind wouldn't stop racing. All the pieces of the puzzle were falling into place in a horrifying way. Minutes later, Dr. Monroe returned with a grim expression. Mr. Jordan, I need to speak with you. What is it? She refuses to remove her top for the full examination. Michael felt his blood run cold. Children only refuse to undress when they have something to hide, or when someone had taught them to be afraid. After an hour of gentle coaxing and boundless patience, Dr. Monroe finally prevailed upon Destiny to undergo the ultrasound. Her soothing words and nurturing touch had gradually eroded the girl's resistance. Michael waited outside, pacing the sterile white corridor of the hospital. His palms grew clammy as he fixated on the clock. 15 minutes. 20. 30. Suddenly, a muffled cry reverberated through the closed door. Michael's blood ran cold. He rushed toward the room, but before he could even knock, the door slowly creaked open. Dr. Monroe appeared, her face ashen. Her eyes, typically serene, were wide with palpable shock. She clutched the exam report in trembling hands. Mr. Jordan, her voice emerged in a broken whisper. I need to speak with you, privately. Now. The doctor's urgent tone made Michael's stomach churn. They moved away to a secluded corner of the corridor, out of earshot from any curious onlookers. What is it? Michael demanded, his heart pounding. Is it cancer? Is she going to? It's not cancer, Dr. Monroe interrupted, drawing a shaky breath. Michael, brace yourself. What I'm about to tell you will come as a profound shock. He held his breath. This can't be right. Michael shook his head before she even spoke, as if his instinct had already warned him. Tell me it's not what I'm imagining. It is right, the doctor confirmed, her voice steady yet compassionate. Destiny is pregnant, approximately 2.5 months along. Michael's world imploded. The hospital walls seemed to spin around him. His legs felt like jelly. He braced himself against the wall, striving to process the devastating revelation. A 14-year-old girl, pregnant, malnourished, terrified. No, it can't be, he muttered, raking his hands through his hair. She's just a child. A child. I know, Dr. Monroe said, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. I was equally stunned. That's why you heard the cry. I couldn't contain myself. Michael felt a consuming rage well up in his chest like molten lava. Who is the father? He demanded, his voice raw, his fists clenching involuntarily. Who did this to her? She won't say, Dr. Monroe replied. Every time I ask about the person responsible, she becomes distraught. She just cries and shakes her head. Michael clenched his fists so tightly his nails dug into his palms. Someone had shattered Destiny's innocence. Someone had stolen her childhood. Where is she now? He asked, trying to rein in the rising fury within him. In the bathroom. She said she felt nauseous and needed a moment to herself. Michael began to pace, his mind grappling with the horrifying information. How could a girl so young be enduring this? How had no one noticed? After 10 minutes that stretched into an eternity, Destiny slowly walked back down the hallway. Her eyes were red and swollen from weeping. She seemed even more fragile, if that were possible. Dr. Monroe approached her with the delicate care one would use with Crystal. Destiny, dear. Her voice was as soft as silk. Did you know you were pregnant? The girl looked at the floor, her shoulders trembling. An almost inaudible whisper slipped from her lips. I thought the baby would die if I didn't eat. Michael felt his heart shatter into 1,000 pieces. Dr. Monroe knelt before Destiny, holding her small, cold hands. What do you mean by that, dear? She asked with profound tenderness. Destiny slowly raised her eyes, tears streaking down her cheeks. I didn't want him to be born, she confessed amidst sobs. I thought if I stopped eating, he wouldn't grow, that he would simply go away. The girl's devastating naivete struck Michael like a physical blow to the gut. She was so young, so innocent, that she truly believed starvation could somehow resolve her predicament. Oh, my dear, Dr. Monroe whispered, tears welling in her own eyes. It doesn't work that way. You were only harming yourself, not resolving anything. I just wanted it to stop, Destiny said, her voice cracking. I wanted everything to go back to normal. I just wanted to be a normal girl again. Michael had to step away for a moment, feeling tears sting his eyes. The child's innocence, her desperate, naive attempt to resolve something far beyond her comprehension, was utterly heartbreaking. Destiny. He moved closer, his voice thick with emotion. None of this is your fault, none of it. Do you understand? She looked at him with wide, frightened eyes. But I should have screamed, she whispered. I should have told someone. Now it's too late. It's never too late to ask for help, Dr. Monroe said firmly, and you are not alone now. You don't understand. Destiny shook her head desperately. He said it was our secret, that God would punish me if I told, that I was guilty too. The revelation struck Michael like a lightning bolt. Whoever was responsible had psychologically manipulated that child, making her believe she was an accomplice. That's a lie, Michael said in a firm voice. Whoever told you that lied. You are the victim here. Destiny continued to sob, her muffled cries echoing through the empty hallway. I just wanted everything to disappear, she repeated. That's why I stopped eating. I thought if I became very thin, very weak, maybe God would understand and make it all go away. Dr. Monroe exchanged a devastated look with Michael. The girl's innocence was simultaneously beautiful and tragic. Darling, the doctor said softly, we need to find out who did this to you, so it never happens to you or another girl again. He'll be angry, Destiny whispered, trembling. He said bad things happen to girls who can't keep secrets. Michael felt the rage boil within him again. Whoever this monster was had not only abused Destiny, but also terrorized her into silence. No one will hurt you while I'm here, Michael promised, looking directly into her eyes. I promise you that. For the first time since they had met, Destiny evinced something that could be the genesis of a faint smile. Do you really promise? She asked in a childlike voice. I promise. Yet even as he made that promise, Michael knew that uncovering the truth would be merely the initial step. The true challenge would be to secure justice and aid that young girl in healing from traumas no one so young should ever have to bear. Dr. Monroe rose slowly. Destiny, we'll need to conduct a few more examinations to ensure you're all right, and we'll discuss further about who did this to you. When you're ready. Destiny nodded weakly. Just don't tell my mother yet, she pleaded. She's already endured so much. I don't want her to suffer further because of me. Michael and Dr. Monroe exchanged another concerned glance. She will need to know, dear, Dr. Monroe said gently, but we'll do it the right way, at the right time. As they walked slowly back to the examination room, Michael couldn't dislodge from his mind the image of that young girl desperately attempting to resolve her problems in the only way her innocent mind could conceive. And somewhere out there, the monster responsible for all this pain remained at large. But not for long. Michael dialed the number Sheila had given him. His hands trembled as he waited for her to answer. Hello. Sheila, it's Michael Jordan. I need to tell you something about Destiny. What is it? What did the doctor say? Is it cancer? Michael took a deep breath. How does one tell a mother her 14-year-old daughter is pregnant? Sheila, Destiny is pregnant. The silence on the other end of the line stretched into an eternity. What did you say? She's pregnant. 2 months. A shriek tore through the phone, a cry emanating from the depths of a shattered mother's soul. That's impossible. My daughter is just a child. I know it's difficult, but... The phone dropped. Michael heard voices in the background. Shouts, something shattering. The call was abruptly terminated. 15 minutes later, Sheila called back. Her voice was laden with fury. It was Clive! It must have been Clive! Calm down, Sheila. Are you certain? He always looked at Destiny strangely. I should have realized. She was sobbing uncontrollably. My daughter tried to warn me when she said she didn't want to move. Michael heard voices in the background, men shouting, Sheila, where are you? At home. I confronted Clive. He denies everything. More shouts. Something slammed violently, as if someone had kicked a door. "Sheila! Sheila! He's fled!" she shrieked into the phone. "Clive has fled!" He stated he had nothing to do with it, and then vanished. Michael's breathing grew heavy. Guilty men flee. Innocent men stay and fight to prove their innocence. While Michael was on the phone, Dr. Monroe observed Destiny in the examination room. Something about the girl's demeanor didn't quite add up. "Destiny, may I ask you a few questions about the baby's father?" "I don't want to talk about it." "I understand, but I need to know if it was someone you knew, someone close to the family." Destiny slowly raised her eyes. An adult intelligence resided within that childlike gaze. "He's closer than you think." The phrase sent a chill down Dr. Monroe's spine. "What do you mean, closer?" "You're looking in the wrong direction." "Destiny, help me understand. If it wasn't Clive, who was it?" The girl rose and walked to the window. Outside, Chicago proceeded with its normal rhythm. People came and went, oblivious to the tragedy unfolding within that hospital. "You think you know all the monsters," she whispered, "but the worst monsters are those who pretend to be angels." Michael returned to the examination room with unwavering resolve. "Destiny, I'm going to stay with you until we find out who did this." "That's not necessary, Mr. Jordan." "Yes, it is. No child should have to go through this alone." Dr. Monroe approached him. "Mr. Jordan, I must inform the authorities. It's protocol in cases of child abuse. Do whatever is necessary, but first I need to be certain who is responsible." That night, Michael secured a private room for Destiny at the hospital. He slept in the armchair beside her bed. Around 3 a.m., he was jolted awake by screams. "No, please, the door is locked." Destiny was having a nightmare. Her hands gestured as if she were trying to open something. "Destiny, wake up!" She opened her eyes, sweating and trembling. "It was just a dream," Michael consoled her. But it wasn't just a dream. It was a memory. The following day, Michael was conversing with Dr. Monroe when a man appeared at the room's doorway. Roy, the benevolent neighbor, was carrying a bouquet of yellow flowers. "How is our little girl?" he inquired in a syrupy voice. Destiny instantly blanched. Her entire body recoiled as if she had seen a specter. "Roy," Michael rose. "How did you know we were here?" "Sheila told me." "Poor child, to endure such an ordeal." He approached the bed. "No!" Destiny shrieked as Roy extended the flowers. "Easy there, little one. These are just flowers to make you feel better." The terror in Destiny's eyes was absolute. Michael had never seen a child so terrified of someone who was supposed to be a protector. "I think it's best you leave," Michael said firmly. Of course, I just wanted to show some affection." Roy smiled, but his eyes were cold as ice. As he left, Destiny began to vomit uncontrollably. The hospital had become a silent sanctuary in the pre-dawn hours. The empty corridors echoed only with the distant hum of machines and the gentle breathing of Destiny, finally resting after hours of weeping. Michael remained there, seated in an uncomfortable chair beside her bed, observing that fragile little face burdened with secrets too heavy for her 14 years. His hands still trembled with suppressed rage, but his eyes overflowed with compassion. When Destiny finally opened her eyes, she found Michael there, like a guardian angel who had promised to protect her. "How do you feel?" he asked gently. She sat up slowly, wiping her swollen eyes. "Better," her voice emerged as a broken whisper. "Thank you for staying." Michael leaned forward, his hands clasped, the weight of the moment hanging between them like a heavy cloud. "Destiny," his voice was firm, yet gentle. "I need you to be honest with me. Completely honest. I know it's difficult, but it's the only way I can help you." She nodded slowly, her large eyes fixed on him. "Are you afraid of Roy?" The name dropped like a bomb into the silence of the room. Destiny didn't respond immediately, but her hands began to tremble violently. She pulled the sheets up to her chin, as if she could hide from the truth. Michael saw her reaction and felt his heart break anew. That tremor confirmed his worst suspicions. "Destiny," he said more firmly, but still with tenderness. "Has he hurt you?" Tears began to stream silently down her face. These were no ordinary tears. They were tears of 3 years of suppressed pain, 3 years of suffocating secrets, 3 years of stolen innocence. Michael rose from the chair and knelt beside the bed, bringing himself to her eye level. Listen carefully to what I'm about to tell you. His voice carried a paternal authority she had never felt before. If someone has hurt you, it's not your fault. Never ever is it the child's fault. Do you understand that? The words struck Destiny like a bolt of light piercing years of darkness. No one had ever said that to her. For 3 long years, she had borne a burden that should never have been hers. But he said, she began, her voice trembling. What did he say? Michael gently prompted. Destiny closed her eyes as if the words were knives slicing her throat. He said it was our secret with God, she finally whispered, each word costing her a piece of her soul. Michael felt his world crumble around him. The pieces of the puzzle clicked into place with horrifying and devastating clarity. Roy, the kind neighbor, the protective godfather, the monster lurking behind a facade of benevolence. His breath grew ragged, his hands clenched into fists, but he kept his voice calm so as not to alarm Destiny. What kind of secret? He asked, though part of him dreaded the answer. Destiny opened her eyes, and Michael saw in them a pain no child should ever know. He said God wanted me to be special. The words came out haltingly, as if each one tore at her throat. That I was his, only his, that this was how God showed special love. The blasphemy of those words struck Michael like a physical blow. To invoke God's name to manipulate and abuse an innocent child was a wickedness that transcended all human comprehension. Michael's voice grew hoarse with suppressed emotion, with a rage so profound it seemed to scorch his very vocal cords. For how long, Destiny? He asked, though he dreaded the answer. How long has this been going on? The ensuing silence was deafening. Destiny looked at her own hands, small and fragile, that had endured far more than they ever should have. Since Daddy died, she whispered, and each word was a dagger to Michael's heart. 3 years. 3 years. 3 years of nightmare for a child. An 11-year-old girl had been systematically abused for 3 years by the protective neighbor, by the man her mother trusted, by the monster who hid behind false smiles and kind words. Michael had to brace himself against the bed to keep from collapsing. The magnitude of the betrayal, the depravity, the manipulation was overwhelming. My God, he murmured, tears streaming down his face. My dear girl, my poor, sweet girl. He said if I told anyone, God would be angry with me. Destiny continued. The floodgates of truth finally opened. He said no one would believe me, that everyone would think I was a bad girl. Those are lies, Michael said with a firmness that reverberated through the room. All lies. You are pure, you are innocent, you are a victim. But I never screamed, she sobbed. I never ran. Sometimes I just stood still, waiting for it to end. And that's called survival, Michael explained, his voice cracking. You did what you needed to do to survive. You are a warrior, not a coward. For the first time in 3 years, Destiny allowed herself to believe that perhaps, just perhaps, she wasn't to blame. He always said it was because I was special, she continued, that other girls weren't chosen by God like I was. Michael felt a fury so intense, it seemed to sear through his veins. Roy had not only abused that child, but had shattered her perception of God, of love, of safety. Destiny, look at me, he said firmly. She lifted her tear-filled eyes. You were not chosen to suffer. You were chosen to be loved, protected, cared for. What he did has nothing to do with God. It has to do with a sick man who preyed on your innocence. He'll be angry if he knows I told, she whispered, fear still lingering in her voice. He will never touch you again, Michael promised, his voice laden with a steely resolve. Never again, I will ensure that. How? She asked, a flicker of hope shining in her eyes for the first time. Michael held her small hands in his large protective ones. Because now you are not alone anymore. Now you have someone who believes in you, who will fight for you, who will move heaven and earth to ensure that justice is served. Destiny looked at him, and something fundamental shifted in her eyes. The fear was still there, but now there was something stronger. Hope. Do you really believe me? She asked. I don't just believe you, Michael said, tears streaming freely down his face. I will honor your courage. You just did the hardest thing in your life. You told the truth. And now, finally, the truth will set you free. The sun was beginning to rise through the hospital window, casting golden rays upon them both. It was as if light itself were celebrating the end of a prolonged darkness. What happens now? Destiny asked. Michael rose, his posture erect and resolute. Now, my dear child, the truth will come to light, and the monster who stole your innocence will pay for every day of pain he inflicted upon you. For the first time in 3 years, Destiny smiled, a small, fragile, yet genuine smile. It was the dawn of justice. It was the genesis of healing. It was the commencement of a new life for a girl who had endured the unbearable and finally found someone brave enough to stand by her side. The truth had been unveiled. Now it was time to make it count. That very afternoon, Michael hired a private investigator. He needed information about Roy before involving the police. I want to know everything about this man, where he's lived, whom he's associated with, if he has a record. 2 hours later, the detective called back. Mr. Jordan, I've uncovered something intriguing. Roy has relocated 5 times across different states in the past decade. Why? There are no official records, but I spoke with neighbors in his previous towns. He always left abruptly, in the dead of night. Michael's stomach churned. And were there always families with young daughters nearby? How did you know? The pattern was unmistakable. Roy was a predator who targeted vulnerable families, single mothers, overworked and in need of assistance. He would offer himself as a protector and then strike when no one was looking. There's one more thing, Mr. Jordan. He has a sealed juvenile criminal record. While Michael investigated, Dr. Monroe sought to gain Destiny's further trust. Destiny, I want you to know you are incredibly brave. I don't feel brave. Telling the truth is the most courageous act there is. Destiny fidgeted with the hospital sheet, avoiding eye contact. He said if I told anyone, bad things would happen. What kind of bad things? That my mom would lose her job, that we'd have nowhere to live, that I'd be sent to an orphanage. Dr. Monroe felt tears welling in her own eyes. And you believed him. He knows a lot of people. He has a lot of influence in the neighborhood. Destiny, look at me. The doctor held her hands gently. If you tell us everything, he won't be able to harm you anymore, or any other girl. It was then that Destiny lifted her gaze. If I tell, he'll kill you. The detective called again late in the afternoon with more shattering information. Mr. Jordan, Roy's sealed record has been unsealed by court order. He was arrested at 16 for assaulting a 12-year-old girl. My God, but that's not all. I've found records of at least 4 families who lodged complaints against him over the past few years. All of them mysteriously retracted the charges. Michael clenched his fists. How mysterious? The families relocated overnight. One of the mothers said she received death threats. The reality was far worse than Michael had imagined. Roy wasn't merely an abuser. He was an organized and calculating monster. Where is he now? No one has seen him since yesterday. His house is empty. Michael's blood ran cold. Predators only vanish when they sense they've been discovered. Michael went to Sheila's house late that afternoon. She was sitting in the kitchen, still reeling from everything she had discovered. Sheila, I need to speak with you about Roy. Roy? He's like a father to Destiny. That's precisely what concerns me. Michael recounted everything he had discovered. At first, Sheila vehemently denied it. That's impossible. Roy has looked after us for years. He was my late husband's best friend. Sheila, consider this. Roy always had access to the house. He was always alone with Destiny. He's a man of God. He attends church every Sunday. Pedophiles frequently use religion as a facade. The word pedophile struck Sheila like a physical blow. Memories began to resurface. Roy always offering to look after Destiny. Roy buying clothes for the girl. Roy insisting on being alone with her. My God, she whispered, what have I done? When Michael returned to the hospital, he found Destiny sitting on the bed, holding something in her hands. Mr. Jordan, I have something to show you. She pulled a crumpled envelope from under her pillow. I hid this under my mattress at home. I managed to get it before coming here. Michael opened the envelope with trembling hands. Inside were photographs. Photos that proved everything. Roy with Destiny. In compromising positions, no protective neighbor should ever be in with a child. Destiny, how did you get these photos? He didn't know I had a hidden camera. I managed to snap a few when he wasn't paying attention. Michael looked at the 14-year-old girl who had engineered her own salvation. You're braver than any adult I know. Can I make a call now? She asked. Michael handed her his phone. Destiny dialed a number he recognized. The police. Hello? I want to report a man who abused me for 3 years. In less than an hour, the hospital was swarming with police officers. Detective Sarah Williams assumed control of the case. Destiny, you were incredibly courageous to come forward with this report. Where's Roy? Michael asked. He's vanished. His house is empty. Neighbors said they saw a moving truck last night. Michael clenched his fists. He fled because he knew we would uncover the truth. We've issued an arrest warrant. He won't escape forever. But Michael knew the system. He knew men like Roy had a knack for disappearing. That night, as Michael slept in the hospital armchair, his phone rang. It was one of Sheila's neighbors, distraught. Michael, Sheila took a box of sleeping pills. She attempted to take her own life upon learning the truth. How is she? The neighbors called the ambulance. She's been hospitalized in serious condition. Michael looked at Destiny, who pretended to be asleep but heard every word. In 48 hours, she had lost her innocence, discovered a pregnancy, and nearly lost her mother. How many tragedies can a child endure? The next day, the hospital had become a temporary sanctuary for Destiny. She was sitting on the bed, coloring in a book Michael had brought, when the phone rang, its sound cutting through the silence like a blade. It was a message from an unknown number. Destiny looked at the screen, her heart pounding as the ominous words materialized. Withdraw the complaint or things will escalate. You know what I'm capable of. Her hands began to tremble violently. The phone nearly slipped from her grasp as she reread the message, each word piercing her soul like needles of ice. Immediately, she tried to hide the cell phone beneath the sheets, but Michael, who had been observing her keenly, saw her face drain of color dramatically. What's wrong? He asked, rising from the chair where he had spent the night. Nothing, she replied quickly, her voice sharper than usual. Just spam. Michael frowned. After everything they had endured, he had learned to read Destiny's cues like an open book. Destiny, don't lie to me, his voice firm yet gentle. Not now, not after everything we've already faced together. She hesitated for a moment, looking at her own hands that were trembling like leaves in the wind. Then slowly, she offered him the phone, her hands shaking so violently that Michael had to steady the device to read it. When he saw the message, he felt his blood run cold. The words were a brutal slap in the face, a chilling confirmation that Roy was not only free, but actively pursuing his victim even from a distance. He's threatening you, Michael said, his voice laced with a simmering rage that made his hands clench into fists. He always keeps his promises, Destiny whispered, shrinking back into the bed like a child trying to hide from a monster in the closet. Michael immediately grabbed his own phone and called the police. His voice was urgent, incisive, demanding immediate action. Detective Williams arrived within 20 minutes, his expression grave as he scrutinized the message on Destiny's phone. We've managed to trace the number, he informed them after making a few calls. It's a burner phone purchased at a convenience store in Indiana 2 days ago. He's left the state, Michael observed, running a hand through his hair in frustration. Yes, but that doesn't mean he's far, Williams explained, his experience palpable in his voice. Men like him can't stay away from their victims for long. It's an obsession. He's coming back. The certainty in the detective's voice sent shivers down Michael's spine. 2 hours later, as the hospital was gearing up for lunch, a uniformed staff member approached Michael in the corridor. Mr. Jordan? The man asked, holding a white envelope. This was dropped off for you at the front desk. Michael took the envelope, immediately noticing there was no return address. Just his name handwritten in letters that appeared almost enraged, heavily impressed upon the paper. He opened the envelope with a profound sense of dread and read, You messed with the wrong man, Jordan. Did you think your fame would protect you? You don't know who you're dealing with. I'll destroy your career and your life. Remove the girl from the hospital or everyone will pay the price. This is just the beginning." Michael felt the air leave his lungs. The threat was direct, personal, laden with a malevolence that transcended anything he had ever encountered. He rushed back to Destiny's room and immediately called Detective Williams, who arrived in record time. "He's escalating the threats," Williams observed, scrutinizing the letter with an expert eye. "This is typical of predators when they feel cornered. They become more aggressive, more desperate." "What do we do?" Michael asked, feeling the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. "We'll bolster security. We'll place undercover agents in the hospital, and we'll wait for him to make a mistake," Williams replied, his strategy clear in his mind. Michael looked at Destiny, who was sitting on the bed, innocently playing with a teddy bear he had bought for her. The normalcy of that moment stood in stark contrast to the storm of threats swirling around them. "I won't abandon her," Michael declared, his voice as steady as a rock. "No matter what he does, no matter how he threatens me." "Mr. Jordan," Williams said cautiously, "perhaps it would be best for you to leave town for a few days. Let the police handle this." "No." The answer came instantaneous and absolute. The determination in Michael's voice was so strong it quashed any further protest. That afternoon, as the sun began to dip below the horizon, Michael's phone rang with urgency. It was his lawyer, his voice laden with concern. "Michael, I need to speak with you." The voice sounded strained over the line. "Public relations is in a panic. This story is beginning to leak to the media." "So what?" Michael retorted, his patience wearing thin. "This exposure could severely compromise your reputation. Your career might be jeopardized." Michael felt a searing rage build within him, like molten lava. "My reputation," he roared, his voice reverberating through the hospital corridor. "A child has been systematically abused for 3 years. A child, for God's sake. I understand your compassion, Michael, but you need to think strategically. Your career is worth millions. You can't squander everything for a situation for which you bear no direct responsibility." Michael halted, feeling a fury so potent that his hands trembled. "My career can go to hell," he declared, each word imbued with unyielding conviction. "I will not abandon this girl. I will not be another adult to fail her." At that moment, Dr. Monroe entered the room, her worried expression interrupting the phone conversation. "Mr. Jordan," she stated urgently, "the police just informed me they've detected suspicious activity around the hospital." Michael immediately disconnected the call. "What kind of activity?" he pressed, sensing danger closing in. "A man was spotted in the clinic across the street, on the 3rd floor, observing our building with binoculars. The description matches Roy's." Michael's blood ran cold. He approached the window cautiously, his hands trembling as he shifted the curtain merely a few inches. Down below, partially concealed behind a black sedan, was Roy. Even at that distance, Michael could discern his cold, calculating eyes. When their gazes met for a second that stretched into an eternity, Roy smiled, a cold, predatory grimace, utterly devoid of humanity. Then, like smoke, he vanished among the parked vehicles. "He's here," Michael stated, immediately dialing Detective Williams. "Roy is in the hospital parking lot. Now." "Arriving in 2 minutes," Williams replied, and Michael could hear sirens being activated in the background. But by the time the police arrived, their lights flashing and officers scrambling through the parking lot, Roy had once again vanished, leaving only the lingering echo of his menacing presence. Michael looked at Destiny, who had burrowed under the sheets at the sound of all the commotion. He sat on the edge of the bed and gently took her small hand. "He won't be able to harm you," Michael promised, though his own voice trembled. "I'll make sure of it." But deep down, he knew Roy was escalating the game, and the next move could be fatal. Outside, in the city's shadows, Roy watched and waited, planning his next move in a game where the stakes were higher than anyone could imagine. The predator had emerged from its lair, and now he was hunting. The next day, Sheila and Destiny had been discharged from the hospital and were home, still fragile. It was 2 a.m. when she heard a noise from the front door. Someone had forced the lock. "Sheila!" A familiar voice echoed down the dark hallway. "Roy, where's Destiny?" he asked in a calm yet menacing voice. "She's not here," Sheila whispered, hidden in the bedroom. I know she's not, but you're going to make her come home. Never. Sheila, you've known me for years. You know I always get what I want. Sheila reached for the phone to call the police, but Roy heard her. Hang up the phone, Sheila. I'll scream. The neighbors will hear. Scream. It'll be the last thing you do. Sheila and Destiny hid in the closet, embracing, trying not to make a sound. They could hear Roy moving through the house, breaking things. Sheila had managed to send a silent message to the police before Roy arrived. Police cars silently surrounded the house. Police! Come out with your hands up! Roy stopped searching for Sheila. He knew he had been cornered. Sheila, this isn't over, he yelled. The sound of breaking glass came from the kitchen. Roy had jumped through the back window. The officers entered the house and found Sheila and Destiny in the closet, embracing and trembling. He got away, Detective Williams said over the radio. Search the area. He's injured. On the living room sofa, Roy had left a knife with the name Michael engraved on the blade. He's planning something, Williams told Michael over the phone. You need to get out of town. I'm not running from a coward who abuses children. 2 hours later, Michael's phone rang. Unknown number. Jordan, you ruined my life. Roy's voice was laden with hatred. You ruined the life of an innocent child. Meet me where it all began. Where? You're smart. You'll figure it out. The call disconnected. Michael thought quickly. Where did it all begin? Where had Roy met the family? The church. Sheila had indicated that Roy made the acquaintance of her deceased husband at the church. Michael discharged himself from the hospital, defying all police recommendations. He left a missive for Destiny. I will put an end to this once and for all. St. John's Baptist Church had been derelict for 2 years. Shattered windows like vacant eyes surveyed the quiescent street. Michael parked his vehicle a block away, his heart thrumming against his ribs like a war drum. His hands quivered as he traversed the fissured pavement. Every step resonated like a pistol shot in the frigid Chicago night. The wind lacerated his skin, yet the ice in his veins stemmed not from the ambient temperature. Roy's missive still seared his mind. Convene with me where it all commenced. Michael pushed open the decaying wooden door. The shriek of the hinges rent the silence like a cry of agony. The pervasive scent of mildew and desolation assailed his nostrils. Shattered pews lay strewn across the floor, like the skeletal remains of a gargantuan creature. Roy, I know you're present! His voice reverberated through the dilapidated walls. The steady plink of water could be heard from somewhere within the encompassing shadows. The hypnotic cadence of the dripping water marked the passing seconds like a memento mori. Flickering candles cast an eerie glow upon the desecrated altar. Flames writhed like infernal entities engaged in a gruesome ritual. The wan, yellowish light cast shifting shadows that writhed like specters amidst the hallowed wreckage. Roy materialized from the gloom like an infernal apparition. His countenance was altered. His eyes, once benign, now gleamed with the derangement of one who had utterly forsaken their soul. You arrived unaccompanied, Roy smirked, yet his smile was devoid of humanity. How valiant! Michael felt every sinew in his body coil. Years of basketball had honed his reflexes, yet nothing had prepared him to confront a monster cloaked in the guise of an ordinary man. Leave the child unmolested, Michael maintained a steady voice, even as fear coursed through his veins like venom. Your quarrel is with me now. My grievance has always been with you. Roy brandished a can of gasoline. The liquid within sloshed ominously against the metal. From the moment you defiled what is mine. The word property sliced through the air like a honed blade. Michael felt bile rise in his throat. Your chattel? She is but a child. She has been my possession for 3 years. Roy began to uncap the container. I sculpted her. I nurtured her. I forged her into what she has become. The pungent reek of gasoline began to permeate the church. Michael realized he stood before a man who had transgressed every boundary of human decency. There was no coming back from that abyss. Roy, you're sick. Michael struggled to maintain his composure. You need help. The only help I require, Roy tilted the can, is for you to vanish. The liquid began to seep across the decaying wooden floor. The sound was like a demon's urine, marking its territory. Michael saw his own demise reflected in the glistening pools forming at his feet. Roy is poised to transform the church into a lethal snare, and Michael realizes he might not emerge from it alive. Michael recoiled a step, but kept his gaze riveted on Roy. Every movement was meticulously calculated. A single misspoken word, an abrupt gesture, and the situation would devolve into pandemonium. "Are you going to burn a church?" Michael inquired, attempting to buy time. Gasoline spread like blood across the floorboards. The chemical scent scorched his nostrils. Michael could feel the toxic fumes blurring his vision. "God forsook me first," Roy chuckled, but there was no mirth in the sound. It was the laughter of a broken man. "When I was a child, I prayed daily for my father to stop beating me. God never listened." Michael saw beyond the facade of madness. For a second, he caught a glimpse of the shattered boy Roy had once been, but the compassion lasted only an instant. "So you decided to become precisely like your father?" "I became better," Roy shrieked, and his voice reverberated through the hallowed ruins. "I bestow love upon these girls." The word love sounded like blasphemy uttered from those lips. Michael felt bile surge up his throat. "Love? You call this love?" Roy pulled a matchbox from his pocket. His hands trembled, not from fear, but with the raw anticipation of a predator poised to strike. "Destiny loved me until you showed up." Roy struck a match. The small flame flickered between his fingers like a golden serpent. Michael knew he had mere seconds before everything ignited into an inferno. "She was afraid of you." "Fear and love are the same thing when you're a child." Roy brought the match closer to the gasoline vapors. Michael realized he was conversing with a man who had reconfigured reality within his deranged mind. Logic was absent, reason non-existent. Only the sheer madness of someone who sanctified unadulterated evil. The match extinguished. Roy struck another. "Where is Destiny?" Michael asked, though he dreaded the reply. "Close." Roy grinned maliciously. "Very close." It was then that Michael heard it. A stifled sob, barely discernible coming from below. From the church basement, his blood ran cold. "You brought her here?" "Our last conversation." Roy lit another match. The flame flickered precariously close to the gasoline-drenched floor. Michael could feel death breathing down his neck. Destiny is in the basement, and Roy is mere seconds away from setting everything ablaze. "Do you want to know the truth, Jordan?" Roy tossed the match away, but immediately lit another. The faint glow of the burning wood died in the wet debris, but the next match was ready. Michael knew he was dicing with death. "What truth?" Roy stopped moving. His eyes took on a faraway look, as though he were gazing upon phantoms of the past. "Destiny's father was my younger brother." The words dropped like bombs into the church's silence. Michael felt his world reel. Everything began to make a macabre and disquieting sense. "Your brother?" "Half-brother," Roy corrected, his voice steeped in a bitterness that spanned decades. "My mother had an extramarital affair with his father. I was born first, a bastard and unwanted. He came later, legitimate and loved." Michael saw the wound that had never mended, the rejected boy who had grown up nursing hatred and envy. "He was always the favorite," Roy continued, his voice fracturing. "The golden child. While I was beaten, he was showered with affection. While I slept on the floor, he had a soft bed." "That doesn't justify anything." "I promised him," Roy roared, his voice reverberating like thunder. "On his deathbed, I held my brother's hand and swore I would look after his family. That's not care." "I love Destiny more than anyone in the world," Roy bellowed like a wounded animal. "She's my family, my blood, the only good thing left of our cursed lineage." Michael felt a wave of nausea. Roy's twisted logic was now laid bare. He had warped fraternal love into a morbid obsession, protection into possession, care into abuse. "You abused your own niece," Michael articulated, each word a shard of glass in his throat. "You annihilated the only pure vestige of your brother's memory." "I protected her." Roy was utterly unraveling. "I gave her everything she needed. Love, affection, attention." The delirium was absolute. Roy had meticulously rewritten reality in his deranged mind, transmuting horror into heroism, abuse into love. Michael heard distant sirens slicing through the night. The police were arriving, but it might already be too late. Where is she? In the basement, Roy smiled with a perverse tenderness. Waiting for me? As she always has. The wail of the sirens intensified. Red and blue lights began to strobe through the shattered windows. It's too late, Jordan. Roy clutched the match like a weapon. She's mine and no one will pry her from my grasp. Not you, not the police, not even God. Michael knew he had mere seconds before Roy immolated the church, turning it into a literal inferno. The sirens blared louder, but not loud enough. Roy, Michael's voice softened. Did you truly love your brother? The question struck Roy like a physical blow. He froze, the match trembling between his fingers. More than anything, Roy's voice fractured. He was the only person who treated me like a human being. Then honor his memory? Michael took a careful step aside. Let his daughter have a normal life. There's no normal life for her away from me. Roy violently shook his head. She needs me. I'm all she has. Michael saw a framed photograph on the ruined altar. It was an image of Jesus, but someone had placed a smaller photo beside it. Two young men smiling, Roy and his brother. Roy followed Michael's gaze, distracted for one fatal second. Would he be proud of you? Michael asked. Roy looked at the photo with tears in his eyes. For a moment, the monster vanished, and Michael saw only a broken man gazing at the only true love he had ever known. That's when Michael made his move. He raced toward the back of the church, where he had spotted a door leading to the basement. His feet slipped on the gasoline, but he maintained his balance. Where are you going? Roy screamed behind him. Michael stumbled down the rotten wooden stairs. The darkness was absolute. He used his phone's flashlight and swept the beam across the space. That's when he saw her. Destiny was sitting in the corner, tied with ropes, but alive. Her eyes were red from weeping, but when she saw Michael, they shone with hope. Mr. Jordan, she cried out in relief. I'll get you out of here. Michael began to untie the ropes with trembling fingers. Above them, Roy was screaming maniacally. Destiny, where are you? Daddy Roy is here. Michael felt Destiny tremble at the sound of that voice. She had lived through years of nightmares, and that voice was the sound of her worst fears. Through the back exit, Michael whispered, helping her to her feet. They ascended silently via an external staircase that led to the rear of the church. Michael could see police cruisers encircling the building. Red and blue lights transformed the night into an emergency kaleidoscope. He's armed with gasoline, Michael shouted to the officers. Jordan! Roy's voice echoed from the church like the roar of a wounded beast. You can't escape me! She's mine! The police stormed the church. Michael held Destiny tight against his chest, covering her ears. Screams, a struggle. More screams echoed through the hallowed walls. Then, silence. Roy had managed to escape through the church's side door, while the police breached the main entrance. He fled like a wild animal toward an abandoned shed at the back of the grounds. Contain the warehouse, Detective Williams commanded via radio. Michael clutched Destiny to his chest, her small frame quivering like an aspen leaf in the wind. Yet she was alive. She was safe. Don't look, Michael murmured into her ear. No matter what transpires, avert your gaze. Roy had scaled the warehouse roof with the desperate agility of a simian. He perched on the precipice, gazing down. It was a mere 2 stories, yet sufficient to shatter bones. Roy, descend! Williams attempted to de-escalate. Let's converse. You require assistance. There's nothing to discuss, Roy shrieked from the brink. I've forfeited everything. My family is gone. My purpose, obliterated. The night wind whipped through his hair. He seemed a gargoyle perched atop the derelict structure, a grotesque figure alien to the human realm. Michael clutched Destiny tighter, turning her away so she might be spared the sight of the man who had ravaged her childhood, utterly self-destructing. You'll destroy Michael Jordan, Roy railed maniacally into the night. You'll destroy Destiny. Once I'm no longer here to shield her, you'll witness it. The world will devour her whole. It was the final, desperate gambit of a predator striving to assert dominion over his prey. Even on the precipice of his own demise, he sought to sow seeds of terror, but Michael would not permit it. "Destiny," he murmured. "You will never again be compelled to fear him. Never again." Roy plunged. The sickening thud of his body against concrete reverberated through the night like a funereal drum. Michael felt destiny flinch in his embrace, but he kept her averted, shielding her even from the impact's reverberation. Paramedics converged on the scene. Miraculously, Roy had survived the fall, though his body was irrevocably shattered. Several fractured ribs, a grotesquely mangled right leg, and suspected cranial trauma. Even as they secured him to the gurney, Roy mustered the strength to bellow. "This is far from over!" His voice rasped, yet the malice remained potent. "Destiny, you will forever be mine. Forever!" Michael instinctively cupped Destiny's ears, but the words had already pierced her awareness. She recoiled from Michael's grasp and fixed her gaze directly upon Roy on the gurney. For 3 long years, that man had been her tormentor, her personal fiend, her unyielding confinement. Now he lay shattered, bleeding, utterly vanquished. "No," Destiny declared, her voice resonating with a strength Michael had never before witnessed. "I was never yours, and I shall never be." Roy struggled to rise from the gurney, but the restraints held him fast. He shrieked like a caged beast as he was wheeled towards the ambulance. Michael's gaze settled on Destiny. For the first time since he had met her, she no longer resembled a frightened girl. She appeared to be a survivor. The long night had finally drawn to a close. The monster was apprehended. The girl was free. And Michael Jordan, who had entered that narrative merely wishing to assist a child who had collapsed on the street, had transformed into the hero she desperately needed. Yet the true heroine was she herself. Destiny had found her voice, and with that voice, she had irrevocably sealed the fate of her own nightmare. Destiny terminated the pregnancy, and 3 months later, Michael took her to witness the ocean for the very first time. She was recuperating through psychological therapy and the unwavering support of a temporary foster family. Roy had been sentenced to 25 years in prison. Sheila was recuperating and had opted to relocate to another state, far removed from all the distressing memories. "How do you feel?" Michael inquired as they ambled along the shoreline. "Different. Lighter." Destiny retrieved the envelope containing the photographs from her pocket. These were the very same images that had served as incriminating evidence against Roy. The police already possessed duplicates of the material. "May I cast this into the sea?" "Certainly." She cast the envelope into the surging waves. The ocean swallowed 3 years of nightmares in mere seconds. "Now I can breathe without apprehension," she uttered, deeply inhaling the briny air. "God heard me." Michael smiled. "At times, God dispatches ordinary individuals to accomplish extraordinary feats." "God hears all children," he responded. "Occasionally, it simply takes a little longer for aid to be dispatched." Destiny chuckled for the first time in years. It was a pure, childlike, unfettered laugh, the most exquisite sound Michael Jordan had ever had the privilege to hear. If this narrative resonated with your heart, please subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell to receive further accounts illustrating how ordinary individuals can emerge as heroes in the lives of those in direst need. Kindly share this with anyone whom you believe would emulate Michael Jordan's actions. For ultimately, each of us possesses the capacity to be the answer to someone's fervent prayer.